How is everybody doing? Strength Chat episode 111, and today I have got two very special guests for you. Today I'm joined by the founder of the Lift4Life Worldwide, John Downing, and the team leader, Nicola, am I going to get this right? Paviglianiti? About right? So, how are you both doing? How are you both getting on?
Good. Thanks for having us.
No worries at all. How's things with you two? What have you both been up to recently or working on at the minute?
I guess I can start. I'm based here in Canada. 3 weeks ago, I competed at Canadian Powerlifting Nationals, which was my fun. So I competed in the 57 kilo women's open class and I won, which was exciting for me because it was my first open national championship win. Cool. But I guess a lot has changed since then in our world. We're currently going through the coronavirus outbreak. So yeah, quickly made it home after that and pretty much been in state of emergency.
John, what about yourself?
I guess kind of similar. Everything's been affected by the COVID-19. You know, normally I'd be about a week and a half out from coaching at Collegiate Nationals this year, which is, was supposed to be 1,000 lifters.
Wow.
And it's a big part of my coaching year, and that's obviously been canceled or postponed or something. So I'm at home. I'm no longer teaching right now since schools are closed, but, just kind of chilling at home and doing work as it comes my way.
So obviously there has been quite a lot of disruption, obviously, with the coronavirus. And the whole point of the podcast was, I thought, what better than try to put a little bit of a positive spin on it and put something a little bit positive out there. And I spoke to Nicola actually in the 100th episode, celebrating that. And obviously mentioned about the work that you've done with the Lift4Life charity, which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit more as the episode goes on, which I think is a really good cause the more that I've read about it and looked into it a little bit more. But for everyone listening who might not know both of your backgrounds, how you both got involved in powerlifting and how you both got to end up working together, do you both just want to give a little bit of a background to yourselves? Who's going first?
Goes first on this one.
I guess my story leads into Nicola's. So, I've been powerlifting since I was in the 9th grade, so about 12 years old in the States. We had a high school team, something I really loved. It came after football season. And then as I went on to college at Ohio State, I took like a year off thinking, powerlifting was something that was going to phase out and go away. But this is about the same time as the uptick of raw lifting, so about 2009. So when it went from everyone having to lift in equipment to not having to. And it's crazy just that small change of not having to buy this expensive equipment, how the numbers just kind of skyrocketed around the world because it was a lot more accessible and cheaper to participate in.
Yeah.
And so I kept competing at Ohio State. I then obviously graduated, and then one summer I went on a kind of like a missions trip to Zimbabwe to do sports outreach. And through that trip, right before I was about to leave, we stopped at a community center, and they were just talking about soccer and basketball and all this other stuff that I had really no interest in. That's not my background per se. And I heard plates hitting the floor. And that's a very distinct noise. Anybody that's been working out knows the sound of plates hitting the floor. And so I instantly ran back around the community center, found this little hole in the wall gym, which we've now all been to several times at Lenora. And it just sparked a lot of ideas in my brain. And I had no idea where that was headed. Now, obviously, that is Lift4Life. And it just, it kind of came out of just a rush of ideas to the brain and just seeing a need and something that could really benefit communities. And obviously the powerlifting community is large, and that comes from the nature of the sport. And it was my 3rd trip to Zimbabwe, somebody emailed me about wanting to work on their master's paper. Master's or dissertation?
Yeah, my master's thesis.
So, this random person emailed me. I had no idea who they were. that turned out to be Nicola. And on a whim, she decided to go on this trip with me to Zimbabwe. Obviously a very weird thing, flying across the world to meet up with people that you've never met, which, it's a lot of risk. And also just, a lot of bravery on her side to step right in and jump in. And we haven't been the same since because, her background is in this area. My background's in high school education. And so she's done a lot for us in a lot of amazing ways.
Cool. So how did you then jump on board, and what's the second part of that story?
So I guess from a young age, I've traveled quite a bit. My parents took me backpacking around the world. I've been to over 50 different countries. And I guess when I moved away from home, I took that with me. I've always had a passion for international development and working with various populations around the world. I came across powerlifting the end of my undergrad in health promotion and health sciences. So I started lifting, and then for my master's, I got accepted to a really unique program based out of Europe. So I did a joint master's degree in international humanitarian aid and peace and conflict studies. So I studied in Europe for a year and a half. And within that, I still powerlifted, and I lifted around the world. And it really contributed a lot to my own life, and it taught me a lot, especially as a young girl, and empowered me. And I was really interested in combining my passion for powerlifting and my academics. So learning how powerlifting could be used within the humanitarian context and with various populations around the world. So when I was trying to figure out what to do for my thesis, I learned more about sports for development and how sports could be used. And I came across Lift4Life, and just on Instagram one day, I saw the account and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I sent John an email. I was like, can I go study in Zimbabwe for a little bit? So he was like, yeah, sure. So I guess I booked to get there and spent 4 weeks there my first time and fell in love with it. I think I was back there 3 months after, pretty much, because I was like, I need to do more research. I need to keep doing this. I have enough data. So yeah, I pretty much lived with the communities, lifted with them, interviewed them, and been back quite a few times since. And it's just
Nice.
So.
I find that all really, really cool. So obviously I came from a team sport background. So I played rugby, and I got involved when I was at uni and through college. I did community rugby coaching, and then I also, when I lived in Australia for a little bit, I went over and found a rugby team, and the community is still the same side of there, but it's more of a team environment. Whenever you walk anywhere or go into a rugby club, there's always it's still a similar environment. But now that I don't play as much rugby and got more involved in powerlifting, it's the same sort of concept everywhere I've been. I think the community side of things is unlike anything I've ever really experienced before, because I know when I played rugby in the UK and I played rugby in Australia, I was a part of that team, whereas powerlifting, everyone wants to see everyone do really well and encourage people, whereas obviously with rugby or football or whatever it is, it's right, my team's going to beat your team. I know you have a drink and everything afterwards, but the community side of thing, I think is absolutely awesome, which is why obviously I wanted to chat to you both about the Lift4Life charity. So from there, how did it sort of snowball, and what were the first sort of projects, and how did you set about getting into these communities and helping them with powerlifting and building that community?
Well, for me, obviously, you start out, you don't necessarily know what you're doing. We've had a lot of growing pains, and I've learned a lot along the way. It started out first as, actually founding the charity in the States. It's 501c3. But in terms of work in Zimbabwe, we first started out kind of like gym development. So trying to build gym equipment and also teach some people, the foundational movements. My second trip back to Zimbabwe, all we did was a lot of clinics about powerlifting, about the movements, how to do them, stuff like that. Just kind of knowledge based. But it's kind of evolved from there, as anything normally does. the building the gym equipment part, I never thought would be like this huge deal, but it's pretty amazing. And Nicola can attest to that. Like the fact that you're building equipment, you're employing people, and it's not like you're just shipping something in from a foreign country. You're actually like using people on the ground and giving them employment, which is pretty awesome. And a lot of her research really dove into like looking at the community impact. And that to me was like something I never thought about or imagined, but it's kind of grown from there to building gyms, building coaches, and then in various communities around Ferrari.
Oh, nice. So what was the quality of the equipment that these communities had before? Because obviously you mentioned that when you went there, you heard plates, but what have you added? What have you added to these communities?
I think something to recognize first is like a love of lifting exists around the world. Like there's like photos of refugee camps where people are just making do with what they have, moving rocks, like building strength in whatever ways they can. I think even right now you can see that with the corona pandemic, when everybody's stuck inside, you see people like lifting water jugs, you kind of do what you can. So that's what these communities did from like the start too. So John came across that. I've come across it in the slums of Kenya and things through my travels. And so John came across that and was inspired to start Lift4Life and provide them actual gym equipment that they could use and teach them the sports. And so it started with that first gym. John came back from his first trip and started Lift4Life in the States in order to raise money and set up that first gym, which is kind of like where I started and got in. And it was really amazing to see the community impact and working together with them. It's largely communities coming to us with their interest and wanting to partner. The communities themselves like go out and teach other people and share it, which is kind of special.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Because I must admit, with everything's happening at the minute, we sometimes forget. So I mentioned before the podcast started, I went down to the gym and I got a strongman log and I got some kettlebells because I don't have as much room in my apartment to have a squat rack. And I think right now, with especially over here in the UK, I'm not 100% sure if all the gyms are closed over there as well, where you two are, that we have all this really, really nice equipment. We've got a massive amount of loads of different variations that we can use. Whereas actually right now, I can't compete in powerlifting. I don't have a barbell or a rack, so I can't wait to get back to using that equipment. But it's right now thinking that, like exactly what you said, Nicola, there, just making the best of a situation, trying to use whatever you can. What has been any of the challenges that you've sort of faced with this? I know you mentioned there, John, that you were learning as you were going. How has this journey and overcome those challenges as well?
I mean, I think our primary challenge, and Nicola can probably guess what I'm going to say, is I couldn't have picked a harder country to start in. Zimbabwe has crazy amounts of unemployment, but with that, you come across pretty amazing things that happen on the community level. Obviously, us finding people to make equipment, it's pretty amazing, and they can make it's good equipment. Like some of the benches we produce are better than some of the stuff in the States.
Wow.
But I'd say the biggest challenge, besides my learning curve, is the fact that Zimbabwe is a country that has had lots of issues over the past, decade or so. And, with that comes hurdles, financial issues. But to me, that's probably been our biggest challenge, is the fact that it's been in Zimbabwe, which, that being said, it's great that that's the challenge, because if we can do something like that in Zimbabwe, we can certainly do it anywhere else.
Oh, cool. So how have you found the response from sort of at home and in Zimbabwe and in other countries as well? Have you found that a lot of people have bought into it really quickly? What's the response been from the projects that you've set up?
From our communities, like the impact and response has been incredible. Like, I wish we had more funds to build more equipment. I wish we could produce it faster and work with more communities. But we currently have 5 gyms set up in Zimbabwe, and we're working on our first one in Lesotho. So doing what we can where we can with the resource that we have and the funding. But it's been so incredible to see the support from all over the world as well, and people that have donated, spread the word. Last year, we actually worked with Kimberly Walford, so she came with us on the ground in Zimbabwe, which is like so cool and so huge. And so we ran a trip, and other people came as well. We ran an outreach trip. So just partnering with the local communities and spreading powerlifting and learning from each other. We're planning another one for this coming July. So both John and I will be going, and we're just kind of waiting it out, and hopefully we can travel by then. But we're excited about that.
That'd be cool. So with the gyms that you've set up, are they run? Is that creating jobs for the people that are in those towns and villages? Do they run those gyms? And what's it like with the competition side of things? Are there now competitions running? How has all that worked?
So Lift4Life mostly provides the gym equipment. That's kind of where we start, and providing like a safe space for people to come. Each gym is like very unique, and so we're kind of partnered with various communities. Usually we work with community centers, and so then it's open to everybody. It's taken care of by the community center and the community themselves. They take ownership of it more than anything, so we don't have to pay rent. It's special to them. It's like their community space and way to come together. I got a little off topic. What was the question again?
How are the gyms run, and competitions and all that sort of stuff?
It's pretty much community leaders stepping up themselves and teaching and mentoring each other. Then you have the younger people teaching and mentoring each other. We obviously provide them support. So John has gone there to teach them powerlifting, set them the basics. We have WhatsApp groups supporting each other. We also focus on other needs like nutrition, and health has been a big one as well. So working with community needs within the gym space. And then John has done a lot of like the actual powerlifting side too, and providing support for like the Zimbabwe Powerlifting Federation. So they're now under the IPF, and John can probably explain a little bit more about that, but that's been pretty exciting over the past couple of years.
Oh, cool. John, do you just want to jump in on that as well?
Yeah. Obviously everything for us is like, teach them, get them everything we need, and try to step back as much as possible. In terms of finding the federation, that took a lot of time just because of different things that have to get approved in the country prior to it being approved by the IPF. And then even within the ZPF, it's all been about, leadership and who's leading it, and are they willing to keep taking the extra mile to get it done. Luckily, we have Audrey who's on the ground, and she essentially leads almost everything in Zimbabwe, and she's been quite the inspiration to many, but also she's an amazing individual. I've stayed at her house, Nicola stayed at her house, and she loves what she's doing, and she pours out for it. And she does, the day-to-day clinics on the ground. She runs meets for the ZPF. And the meets are pretty amazing. Like, here you have a meet, most of the people there are competitors and family of competitors. When you go to a meet in Zimbabwe, it's like this community center is packed with like 200 people that just came because something's going on and they want to watch what's happening. The first meet we ever had there too, like I had no idea who was going to show up. And this was Nicola's first trip, and she had to leave in the middle of the meet to fly home. But, just seeing like a building packed full of people to watch what was going on, like, it's quite amazing.
Cool.
But the ZPF, for the most part, they reach out to me when they need help with things, but currently they're running themselves, which is good.
Cool.
I give them the guidance when they need it, but it's great for them to take it and run with it.
Even one of the youth just stepped up to like host a meet in his community. So he was taking on like a leadership role. He's in his like young 20s, but he's participated in a number of meets now and realized like he could do it too and become a leader. And so that was currently in the plans. And so Lift4Life supports where we can, for example, potentially providing funding to help them rent a facility or hire a generator because they don't usually have power within these communities. But we've built a lot of trust and relationships and working together that they kind of just like come to us with their needs and we work together and how we can best support them.
Yeah, it's nice to see something like that, you know, sort of planting that seed and just seeing it grow naturally by itself, I think, which is great to see. Obviously, you mentioned there about the powerlifting clinics that you'll put on, but you also touched on sort of like the health benefits and the things outside of the competitions and technique side of things. So what of the branches off from the powerlifting side of things for the results? Because I know when I've gone and done like rugby coaching or anything like that, it's in communities where children can get into maybe groups and influences that they shouldn't really be getting involved with, and it's a safe space for them to actually learn a little bit more. What of the tangents that have come sort of off that and the results that you've seen from the work that you've done?
So that's kind of mostly what I did my original master's thesis on. I'm actually working on, I got invited to do an academic book chapter. So that's what I'm doing on the side right now, is like writing more about Lift4Life's impact within the past 2 years since I did my thesis. So I have like massive documents that I need to do sharing. But so some of the things you touch on, from my research, I definitely learned a lot about employment and livelihood opportunities. So obviously we build equipment locally, so that employs a local welder. All materials are locally, so it supports the local economy. Locals are even hired within other Lift4Life projects when we need to hire a generator, other things. So provides employment in a country that the unemployment rate is estimated at like 95%. We also, within my research, I heard about crime and drug abuse. So having a safe space for people to go to, especially for the youth. Suddenly the communities didn't have youth idling anywhere and they had a purpose. So not as many break-ins. Powerlifting, obviously, you have to be under the IPF drug-free. So that was a big thing. Eating healthy, focusing on like fostering health was a big thing as well. Youth and women empowerment was another topic that came up within my research. So powerlifting is a unique sport in terms that it's kind of for everybody. So there's every age group, every weight class, every gender can participate, in contrast to something like rugby that's sometimes a little bit harder. Even you have para-athletes that participate in powerlifting. So it was definitely an inclusive community, and especially for women and youth too. That was a big surge we saw within powerlifting and acceptance of women outside the household, which was very cool.
You did find that quite hard to come across, because I know obviously one of the biggest things is, and you two will know a lot more than what I will. Obviously, going into someone a different culture, did you find that quite hard? Was it sort of because I know? So when I first set up the powerlifting club that I run, a load of guys rocked up and they just thought that they're going to max out all the time. It's like, well, no, we're going to learn technique. And then gradually, quite a lot more women got involved in the powerlifting club. And actually, I probably got a lot more women that are competing in powerlifting than potentially the men. How did that work within the communities and the cultures that you worked with?
To be honest, like a big thing was me going there to lift with them. I'm like a small little girl. I weighed 110 pounds at the time, my first time, but I could lift more than most of the guys in the gym could. So I was taken seriously by the guys and gained respect that way, as well as by the women. It was a little bit different than if John goes to lift and be like, oh, women can lift too. But to actually see a little girl, I could gain respect from like the entire community and also not be a threat. And it was also building female leaders as well. So pretty much the head of the Zimbabwe Powerlifting Federation is Audrey. So she's 34-year-old single mom and just like owns it. And she's strong now too. She's actually sponsored by the Strength Guys with her coaching. She was the first Zimbabwean to win a gold medal. So she competed at African Championships last year and got gold in bench only, which was really exciting. She's been able to compete internationally a few times, so gaining respect that way. And she's inspired so many other women and girls too. So she trains with like daughter who's 13. She set up some women only sessions too in order to help encourage other women, especially for like the first time if they're not comfortable with the big guys. So it's been cool to see how it's grown, and especially from the grassroots as well.
Yeah. How has the because I know strength sports and powerlifting is becoming increasingly popular and numbers are growing. From when you first started to where Lift4Life is now, what has the growth been that you've seen?
I mean, Nicola said it earlier too. The great thing about strength sports is people everywhere want to lift. Like you don't have to call it powerlifting. Like people across Zimbabwe are lifting, whether we're present or not. And so when we come into these various communities and we talk with them about powerlifting and teach them about powerlifting and build that partnership and trust, and whether it's eventually providing powerlifting equipment or not, the numbers are there. It's kind of like we're fine-tuning the numbers, and the numbers are becoming powerlifters, and people are just flocking to the fact that when you see someone lift a lot of weight and how they're lifting might look slightly different than how you're lifting. It's like this pursuit of knowledge, and just finding that knowledge to get stronger. And so the numbers keep growing because of that, but also just more communities reaching out and wanting to be a part of it.
I think that's a key thing there, just to be a part of something, which I think is really important, whether it be powerlifting or just lifting in general. I think that's really important. Just sort of touching on that topic of being part of that community and giving people a safe environment to train and all that sort of stuff. How do you think sort of other areas could benefit from this? So back home, where you both are, and in other communities, is there any thoughts on doing spreading it out a little bit further? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess we've kind of already started that. This past year, I set up Lift4Life Canada. So John actually donated an Eleiko rack too for use locally. There's a lot of need within our own backyard too that I think strength sports would be very powerful within. I've had some experience working with local populations that have been in conflict with the law, and I think strength sports would be a powerful way to reach people. So working with youth that are in detention centers or something like that, and same with young girls, people that can't always afford to go to the gym, giving them access to the rack. So I started hosting some local events, and I successfully hosted one in January, just an open, come to the gym, like come experience powerlifting, like come be physically fit. Like it was entirely free. I just got another grant too to start hosting weekly learn to lift sessions that are totally free for the community, just experiencing community, the benefits of physical activity, and also giving them access, being a space for access to other resources too. So potentially like a healthy meal if they need it, or other things. So that's what we've been able to do in Zimbabwe as well.
Cool.
Is like nutrition, like education, other factors. So same with our backyard as well.
Is that just the work from Lift4Life then, or have you been working in partnership with other charities, or is it solely just Lift4Life that is doing this?
In Zimbabwe, we've actually partnered with Restoration Hem. So a big need that came up my last trip to Zimbabwe was that girls weren't coming to the gym because of their periods and the stigma behind that, and they couldn't afford pads and things like that. Like they were doing dangerous practices as well, because using leaves and other things, and obviously not coming to the gym if they're on their period. So I connected with a local charity that makes reusable menstrual hygiene products locally. So for $7, you can provide a girl a sanitation kit that has a reusable pad that will last them 3-ish years. So we've done distributions at our gyms through them and partnering with them. So it's kind of like a mutually beneficial relationship. We work together at our gyms in order to like empower the girls and provide them.
Nice. I like that word. I like empowerment. That's you've been mentioned a couple of times through this. I think that's cool when people feel empowered that they can go and do things like this, which is really good. What are both of your
special to note here was that the idea actually came from a young girl within the community. So it was like my idea. It wasn't this other charity person's idea, but it was a young 16-year-old girl, Juliet, who messaged me one day and was like, I really want to help these girls that are lifting at my gym. And so we found unique ways to address that and use Lift4Life donations that way.
Cool. What are both of your thoughts sort of on sort of being the catalyst for other people to start running projects like this, or other charities to form like this? Because like I've mentioned before, there's loads of things out there for team sports like football, rugby, all that sort of stuff. What are both of your thoughts for other projects like this to get started?
I mean, I welcome it. If people want to go out and help people in any form or fashion, like, more power to them. It's kind of been interesting, even following on Instagram, like having the handle Lift4Life. And when I first, created the handle, and then how many more Lift4Life handles exist now, and a lot of them are present in weightlifting. And so there's some Lift4Life weightlifting organizations, which, I've never talked to or not really even upset about. It's just the fact that it's cool that other people are doing this. Go ahead.
We've had like a surge in people like reaching out and stuff and wanting to have their impact, not only in Zimbabwe, but like locally too. So and we've actually started an ambassador program. So it's run by the new Lift4Life Canada director, Shannon. So people can apply to be a part of Lift4Life and have their own impact in their own ways. For example, host a local fundraiser, and with donations going towards wherever the strength needs to be spread. So it's kind of cool to see how it's grown. And I think we have 9 ambassadors right now that are hosting local events in their community. Working with youth or hosting like a charity fundraiser meet. So that's benefiting both locally and globally. Yeah.
Where are they based? Are they based across the globe, or where are they mainly based?
Yeah. You can apply anywhere. We welcome different partnerships and collaborations. We work with a few different companies, but one that stands out to me is actually the Strength Guys. Yes. So Jason was one of our first donors and has always been a big supporter and has seen how strength training can benefit people. And so the Strength Guys a couple years ago committed to increasing their athlete fees by $5, and that $5 goes towards Lift4Life. Wow. So it was a cool way for the athletes to spread strength globally. And so, we've been able to build a couple gyms under the Strength Guys, and they've obviously, Jason even helped Audrey and trained her to win that gold medal. So it's whatever people want to have their impact and where they.
Cool. So you mentioned a couple of obviously starting to do projects where you both are. What does the future hold for Lift4Life? What sort of the plans do you have going forward? What are your plans or upcoming projects?
I mean, to me, it's about, spreading out to more countries. But that comes with first focusing on, internally getting everything right, which Nicola has been a huge part of. And then also going after grant money, because that's kind of where the future is in terms of getting a lot of money to go to a lot more countries.
Yeah. Where do those grants come from? Is it mainly sort of like donations, or what's the process behind that?
So a lot of like Lift4Life's funds have come from donations around the world, as well as partnerships with a few different companies for sponsorship. But there's a lot of organizations that have formal grant money based on projects and areas they want to have their impact. So applying to those that Lift4Life fits with.
Oh, cool. So, and probably to round off sort of all the questions that we've chatted about there, I know this is something that I found really interesting, and I kind of wanted to, or hopefully for everyone, maybe the 2 or 3 people that listen to the podcast, but for the people who listen to this, to reach it to maybe a wider audience who haven't heard about Lift4Life, where can people find and help support the charity?
Lift4Life Worldwide is our website. Should be pretty easy to find. Google it. Donations allow us to do what we do, so that's a big part. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Lift4Life_worldwide is our handle. We also just welcome like partnerships and collaborations. If anybody's interested, like reach out. We're always happy to work with you and whatever you want to contribute.
Cool. Thanks for both of you for taking the time to chat with me about that. Ever since setting it up, I've been mulling over the idea, and I'm glad we finally managed to set something up and hopefully put something out there with everything happening at the minute that is quite positive. And when all this has settled down, everything that's happening, in the world right now, everything has settled down. That actually that projects like this can continue and spread, and give people a chance to become part of a community and something a little bit bigger. So thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you.